my name is Akiva Goldman. I'm the director and founder of Goldman & Associates. Our firm has a primary focus on family law issues here in Michigan, so please subscribe to our channel. You know, when people are married, there are certain rights and entitlements that go along with the status of being married. But we're finding a lot nowadays, and especially in the last few decades or so, more people are having children outside the boundaries of a marital relationship. So a lot of times you got parents that are having a child, they're co-parenting a child, they were never married. So now the question is, what happens in terms of when the relationship falls apart? When there's a child in a non-marital union, the relationship falls apart, how do we determine what the rights are? Well, the rights to a very considerable degree, if you litigate them, are ultimately going to flow from the relationship the parties have with the child, and whether or not the court thinks that it's in the best interest of that child to go with mom or dad or both. That is a technical rule that only kicks into play once the paternity is established, though. So you got to understand that. In other words, in order to play this game, you got to get into the stadium. If the paternity's never been established that you're the dad, you don't even get into the stadium, let alone participate. So before we get into the issue of, well, who's going to have custody of this child, we got to first establish we know who the mom is. That's the person who gave birth, okay? But we don't necessarily know who the father is if the father's not on the birth certificate, if there's no affidavit of parentage anywhere. How do we figure this out? So in that scenario, you're going to have to establish that you've got paternity and that you're ruled in as the father. Now, how do you do that? Well, it's very, very simple. You have to have petitions filed on your behalf, what we call a DP case, a petition to determine paternity. In that scenario, what happens is your lawyer will prepare a petition asserting that you are the father. The court will then, especially if an answer is filed disputing it, order appropriate DNA testing. The court will enter an order requiring testing done at a court-approved lab, and they'll swab everybody and do what they got to do. And ultimately, those results will be sent back to the court. The court will make a determination what the paternity is. And the court will enter an order that says so-and-so is ruled into the paternity, and there's an order granting him the paternity, which means that now when we talk about support issues, parenting time, custody, at least we know who we're talking to. We got the father, he's ruled in as the paternal father, and we got the mother. So now this is how it works. And it's very interesting because if a child is born to a father who is not the husband of the wife, in other words, there's a marriage, and the wife has a child by another man outside the marriage, when the court has to make that paternity determination, the court has to do what we said before, plus one other thing. The court has to make the determination that the person with whom she had this relationship, that he is ruled in for paternity, and that the husband is ruled out of paternity, because in a marriage there's a presumption in favor of paternity with the parties to the marriage. So that creates another step. Obviously there are technical rules about this. So if you're involved in this situation, if you have any questions, reach out. Of course, we'll be glad to help you out.